Well, here we go. Let's get it going. I see Ute down there really shucking and jiving, so I think we got something going good tonight. And I want to thank everybody for being here with us this evening for another edition of the Big 12 Mafia show on the College Football Mafia Network. We're going to be a tripartite set of hosts tonight. We've got Moen and Wild Ute are going to be on here with me. Hopefully, my computer doesn't break again. You guys, how about you guys say hey?
Hey, what's going on? Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday. Moen, what are you dressed as today?
I know. I'm just at the gun range getting some shooting.
Oh, okay.
So.
All right. And you're shooting at the big M in the background. Is that what I see? Okay.
They're green people back there. So
people.
Anybody who's green better watch out.
I appreciate it. We want to thank everybody for being here tonight. I think we got a fun show lined up. We've got a bunch of stuff in the news that we can cover. And then, of course, when we get near the end of the show, it's going to be comments, and enjoy interacting with you guys on the things that are top of your mind. We'll try to cover those things tonight as we have time or we don't. I want to thank everybody for being here. Make sure you follow us all on Twitter. Make sure you subscribe to the show on YouTube. Make sure you turn on your notifications so you know when our show is going to be coming on or when we have some important tweets to put out to the world. And then last but not least, consider becoming a member of the College Football Mafia Network, a family of shows that I'll preview here in just a second. So check this out.
Want to become a member of the College Football Mafia family? Simply select the Join button from our homepage. There are several options with their own unique benefits to choose from. You can also set yourself to auto-accept gifted membership by selecting the gift settings options as shown.
I want to appreciate Moen putting that together. Obviously, we've always had good videos here. Really quick, I'm going to actually take everybody to our main page on YouTube. Let me make sure I get back here. We've got...
We might have Bomber phasing out here, Moen.
Yeah, Bomber might have froze out up here. Hopefully he didn't, because he just put that new power supply in, but we'll see if he disappears from the screen or not. But you want to hype up your Notre Dame to the Big Ten video a little bit?
Yeah, check it out. So members only. So Notre Dame to the Big Ten video. Go check it out. All the Wild University videos going forward actually will be behind the member wall here. So we just want to offer the best services and everything for our members. So that video and the Louisville video, go check those out. They're behind the member wall. If you're a member, go check it out. And then future videos too for Wild University. They're all going to be there available for you.
Yeah. And this week I'll be releasing Timeline, which is the alternative history events of seminal moments in college football history where something could diverge and where we would look at in the future. Should be some interesting stuff, but that will also be in the members only section. And of course, we have stuff from Justin Coos Walker on there, Coos' Corner. Lots of great stuff in that members only section if you want to see it. So I highly recommend becoming a member. Our good friend Ryan gifted 10 memberships the other night. So I know those 10 people probably went over there and devoured that Notre Dame video. So
Notre Dame is really, really strong candidate. We knew that though, didn't we? We knew it before. The one thing that's shocking though, Moen, is USC. How good a candidate USC really was. I mean, maybe you realize that, but looking at how close like they and Notre Dame were as far as like candidates.
Yeah. As far as blue bloods. As far as blue bloods. All right, you're on your laptop now?
Yeah, it's not as good, and it's hard for me to drive from here, but I'm back anyway.
Okay. Well, here, let me put you back in the driver's seat.
All right.
There you go.
Sorry about that, everybody. I went and bought a whole new power supply. It's been running, but obviously something's in conflict because it's quit working for some reason. Where did you guys leave off? What were you just talking about last?
We were talking about Notre Dame. Video. Yeah, Notre Dame. Notre Dame.
All right.
Notre Dame,
yeah,
Notre Dame.
I want to. Yeah, let's talk more about that because I know that there's a lot of feedback we're getting from people watching the video. Correct?
Oh yeah. You're getting people who are basically saying F Notre Dame. People are tired of Notre Dame to the Big Ten. I get it.
Okay.
Irish
People are
fatigue
tired
set
of it,
in.
right?
It's true.
I get it. I get that Notre Dame, like we're all heard so much about them and everything, but the fact is nobody's actually dug in before this analysis on why Notre Dame's a good fit. It was just like intuitive. Like we think Notre Dame's a great fit, which they are. Here's the reasons why: because they get massive TV ratings, because they're linked to the Chicago market, because they have historical football success, because they're a huge brand. I mean, like when you're measuring everything out, it's really interesting to see how they stack up to the Ohio States and the USCs. I thought it was really interesting that Ohio State's still ranked on top of Notre Dame, though.
Especially in research.
Well,
that's the slide that I think is the most amazing. That slide on research dollars.
I don't think that research thing is as big a deal as they make it out to be. If they're going to build a super league, the schools don't necessarily all need to be aligned in that way again. If we're starting to chase dollars, not saying they are, but if that's the goal, is to get more money and then have an exclusive club, I think some of that stuff might get set aside. Now, the one question I have for you, Moen, is we've talked about it hundreds of times. The chances that the SEC and the Big Ten just sort of take over and everybody else is left to float, which is what a lot of the conversation has been. What does that do when you have 40 schools, roughly, and only about 20 of them are really competitive? Is that really a product that everybody's going to want to watch?
Well, that's the NFL, basically, Nate.
No, I know what it is. I'm saying, are you going to get enough people to watch?
I mean, people watch the NFL for the same reasons. I mean, there's teams that are uncompetitive in the NFL. Doesn't mean that people don't watch the games, don't go out to the games. You got to have winners and you got to have losers, and you got to have Cinderellas.
Right.
And you get all those in the NFL as a, I believe, 32 team league. So
yes.
Why couldn't you do the same thing in the college football 40
Well,
team?
because again, we're just talking about just the two leagues as they're currently constituted. The NFL is the most it has the most parity of any professional league in the world. The teams,
right,
from whoever wins the Super Bowl to whoever's the first pick in the draft on Thursday, you're talking very fine margins, 1-2% differences. But
they divide revenue equally the same way college football does, same way the Big Ten and SEC do. You divide even revenue equally. You're going to have more parity. Are there going to be certain schools that don't take advantage of it or take advantage of it in other ways? Sure. I mean, Indiana's going to put their money towards basketball. Purdue's going to put their money towards basketball. Wisconsin's going to put their money towards football. Nebraska's going to put their money towards football. Iowa's going to put their money towards football and wrestling. But, I mean, there can be parity in a 40-team league. It's just up to the schools to actually do it. We were talking before the show about Rutgers.
Right.
Rutgers went out and signed Greg Schiano to this massive contract. They're coming up with new NIL deals to keep New Jersey kids in New Jersey. It's just a matter of enacting it. And a lot of these schools, unfortunately, haven't enacted it. But I think if you went to a more 40-team format, I think you would see more teams start focusing on college football.
So 20 teams, and you can jump in here at any time because you and I feel the same way about this.
Right.
Is it really, there is no fair. It's like there's no crying in baseball. There's no fairness issue here. But are really people going to want to pay top dollar to watch Purdue play Vanderbilt? Because that's all there's going to be on. It's going to be games like that are on regularly. It's no longer you can slough the bottom half of your conference. That is it. It is the conference at that point. So are people going to watch that?
Yeah, what do you think, Bone? Are people going to watch that?
Are people going to watch the Jacksonville Jaguars play the Houston Texans?
They are comparable.
They are comparable. You can take the bottom two teams in the NFL and put them together on a Sunday, and people would watch it. I think you could take some of the worst teams in college football and put them together. Somebody's going to watch it. I watch. I watch football throughout the week. I will watch Kent State play Akron, not know,
Right.
and put money
Well,
on because I know
I
the over.
don't. I don't know. I mean, you're asking a question that I don't think can be answered. What do you think, you?
Yeah, I think that when you're talking about a breakaway, and we're really going back to that Ross Dellinger article
Right.
that's talking about the winnowing, and we've talked about this before on the channel, but it's a great dialogue and everything. So what happens like when you do break away to 40, 50, 60 teams in a conference or a super league and stuff, who warrants getting into that type of league? That's really
Right.
what we're getting to. Is
Yeah.
it just because you are in the Big Ten right now, you automatically make it into that type of super league or the breakaway league? I mean, obviously, as outsiders of the Power Two, we think that's completely unfair and
Right.
bunk, especially when we've got quality programs like a BYU, Utah, West Virginia that are a lot better than a lot of these schools that are automatically going to get parlayed in and brought in. I mean, there's no
Yeah.
meritocracy with this at all. And so there needs to be some changes with that model consideration too, because if it's all about maximizing revenue, like we've talked about before, yeah, like you're going to get losses from a Purdue or an Indiana, but really they're not going to drive the needle viewership wise. If it's all about the eyeballs, then let's bring the teams in with the biggest eyeballs and make this thing a real light NFL rather than just bring along and call it like something else. And
Completely
let's just
agree.
go all in.
Yep. I agree. Really quick, we got a super chat for the one and only Lonnie Johansson, $5 super chat. Lonnie also happens to be a member of the channel. Appreciate your loyalty there, Lonnie. It says, good evening from Northeast Kansas, and go BYU and UAU and the Big 12. So thank you, Lonnie, very much.
Proof.
Thank you for that.
Georgia Tech to you, Lonnie. There we go.
All right.
Georgia
Did I hear
Tech.
a Georgia Tech in there? Georgia Tech.
Yeah, Georgia Tech, absolutely.
There we go.
Georgia Tech.
There we go. I love to hear
And you
it.
know what, Nate? Like, okay, so after all this conversation, I'm quite sick of it actually from a Big 12 fan perspective about all the crap we've been taking, man. Just
Yep.
been like get shoveled crap after crap. I'm so fed up with it. Like, well, there's nothing we can do about it. They're basically telling us to take it, the Power Two. We got to freaking fight back, man. We got to
Right.
fight back. We got to become more valuable. Like, whatever it takes, because this is ridiculous. Like, we're acting like we're, a Division II or a Division I team here. Like the Big 12 has legit football contenders. The University of Utah this year, if they make the playoffs, they're going to cause some ruckus. Like some super good teams and stuff.
Yep.
Just to be thrown away and say, hey, Indiana, Purdue, they deserve in. Vanderbilt and Mississippi State deserve in because of their old association and stuff. That's just not how this country works.
Well,
I want
it's
to see a
largely
meritocracy.
geographic too. Those two conferences, except for the few new teams they've added in the Big Ten, they're regional conferences. Everything blew up when USC and UCLA left, but that's where the strength comes. It comes from the regions they're from, and so I just don't know. Just having that regionality makes the conference strong, but this is what we're basically talking about: is winnowing 2/3 of all the college football teams, little over 2/3, to just go away. Do something on your own, because you're not going to be in this 2-conference 40 team. We're estimating, right? 40 with Notre Dame
40
in
team,
there.
50 team, whatever you want to make it. Right?
Yeah. So we've talked about it forever. I just don't know, how that gets. Everybody wants to talk about it. Well, did you guys talk about Petiti in his article today, where basically
No, we didn't touch on the article.
you haven't touched on that yet?
Nope.
Let me see. I don't have everything shared obviously on here, Moen. Could you find that article just in our DM group and bring that up? I lost all my links, so I can't get there. But basically,
Okay, like, I know you're going to summarize that, but when Moan's pulling that up, here's a thought. If it's all about making money, and this is what college sports has become. It's all about making money. It's not about rivalries anymore. It's not about the pageantry. It's just about making money. We're
Right.
talking about bringing private equity in to the G5 space
Right.
And having them fund a new tournament, essentially. Like, if it's all about just money, then why are we even wasting our time with the two conferences known as the Power Two right now? All you have to do, okay, how do you make money in college football, guys? Eyeballs. Really, like,
Yep.
if we're talking about media rights, it's eyeballs. It's who watches games. That's Ohio State, that's Notre Dame, that's Michigan, that's Penn State, that's USC. We know that because that information is available. I share that on Wild University's videos all the time. So if it's all about those eyeballs, all you can do, just look at who's not getting the eyeballs in the Big Ten and the SEC, then simply dump them because they're not bringing anything to the table. Are they bringing losses? Like, someone's going to lose anyway. Like, it doesn't matter if your brand's strong enough. Just like USC, when their brand, like, there's still people will watch them if they're good or bad. So if you're trying to maximize eyeballs, there's no point in having a Purdue, a Mississippi State, a Vanderbilt in your conference. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, if it's not going to be a meritocracy, then why do they deserve to get into some type of elite Power 2 league? That's total bullcrap, especially for a team, a school like the University of Utah. There's a chance of winning a national championship. That's a legit university that's getting left out in the cold. It's complete bullcrap. And that bugs me a lot when the Utah is way higher in the pecking order than a lot of these Big Ten and SEC schools, but they're still left out. And put your school in there too. You can plug any school. It's not just Utah in there. But like, this idea, just because you're in the good old boys club, that you get in to like this new Power 2 is completely bullcrap. Like, make it a meritocracy, or else just dump the lower level and maximize eyeballs to make this a real business venture. If private equity gets involved, that's exactly what they're going to recommend.
Absolutely true. We got a super chat here from Carrie Gold-Knowles, $10. Thank you very much, Carrie. Wild thought here. Would adding FSU, Clemson, Miami make the Big 12 on par with the SEC and the Big 10? Just a thought. Let him cook, Mullen.
Let him cook.
Let him
Let him
cook.
cook.
Let him cook now. Let him cook. I said let him cook.
That's how we like to hear it right there. Carrie, you're exactly right. That's exactly the right point. I think if there was just a couple of modifications for schools that could float from the SEC to the Big 12, and they didn't go to the Big 10 or the SEC, I do believe the Big 12 would go up maybe $55 million per school.
Yeah.
It's not the same, but it's certainly not being left out in the cold either. There's enough money in there to show some parity. So I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
I think that you nailed it, Bomber, here. So FSU, Clemson, and Miami would be a huge boon to the Big 12. It would lift the valuations considerably. We're going back, though. Who watches the most games, though? Like, if you look at overall viewership across the country, people watching Ohio State, Michigan, Alabama, Georgia, Texas, Florida State's in the top 10, 15 range nationally and stuff, but they're not in the top 3 or 5. So, I mean, it's going to lift valuations, but we're not going to get to that same level of the Big Ten and the SEC are because of Ohio State and Michigan. Ohio State and Michigan and your Alabama is like, they ramp up the valuation so much because of the eyeball aspect, because of the media rights. So, like, it's nuts, really, how much value those schools provide and how little value the lower end provides as well. They're just there to get beaten up on.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Moen, did you find the one there was 2 pieces to that article we were going to discuss?
The first one here, I have it up here.
Okay.
Would the SEC have really taken its proverbial ball and left the CFP? Absolutely, SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey told Yahoo Sports when we ended the set of meetings in January 2022 without a decision. It was clear, if you're going to walk away from the opportunity, we're going to reevaluate our position, format, revenue sharing, and governance.
So not a blind threat then?
No,
not
absolutely
a blind
not.
threat. I mean, that's huge. That's a quote now hanging out there. You know, before it was just people talking about it. This is an actual quote from one of the conference commissioners. It really is crazy the way the messaging has changed.
Then later on, they talked to Notre Dame's new AD, Bevacqua. You say walk away, but walk away into what, Bevacqua said? What would the landscape look like if we couldn't have negotiated a deal? That was such a great unknown. Then during and quoting a former article from Yahoo Sports, Petiti emphasized that it was a real possibility. I think we felt confident that we were willing, if we couldn't craft a deal, that we'd look at other options. We would have started over without seeing better alignment. We weren't going to sign. We were 100% confident and made it clear that we were only going to do a deal that worked for us.
I mean, that just sends chills down my spine. When I read this, and it was actually attributable quotes, not just supposition, not some analyst or article writer, an actual quote from the Conference Commissioner, that gave me pause today. And it means that we're a lot farther down the road than we ever thought was the case. I just think that's crazy.
I mean, like that we're there, right? Like it almost just happened, right? Like, so it's only a few years away and everything. And that's why we're talking about this. And that's why we're passionate about this, because it really feels like if you're not inside the Power 2 at the moment, you're getting left behind.
Right.
That's the issue. That's where the passion is. And that's not a lie. That's actually what's really happening too. It's not incorrect to say that. Your school is getting left behind if you're not in the Power 2 unless something changes. It just is what it is.
Let's get to some more comments here. Ryan Willie, happy to have you here, Ryan. So he's been a member for 4 months. Thank you so much. He says, Nathan, you need to fill the time slots. You can't do that with 50 schools. That's what we've been saying. All along we've been saying that. There's not enough teams. You need to be somewhere between 60 and 72 teams to fill the entire schedule for a particular weekend. So what do they do for those games?
Well, I think in my opinion, I think down the line, I think there's going to be more football games played, but it's just not going to be at the same level. We're essentially going to have like your major league and your AAA football. Right. And the games we played at AAA still on Saturdays and stuff, but the big time slots are going to be played by the major league teams, i.e. the Power 2. That's exactly how you can fill all those time spots. So you don't necessarily need to fill everything if you're in the quote unquote Power 2. But yeah, that's just like an idea out there they can throw. I mean, it's a serious risk though. I mean, like in this thing that scares me the most is like, from a business perspective, like I know that a lot of folks think that it will ruin like the watchability and the viewership numbers if there is a breakaway. I don't think so at all. I think that actually viewership's going to be flat or even grow because of the matchup generation, at least for a period of 5, 10, 15 years until it just fades away after a while and stuff. But I think for a good period of time, at least a decade, you're probably going to get a lift in viewership if you did have a breakaway. And then people would get sick of it. And people wouldn't grow up watching football, college football, because you'd be in a lower division and stuff. You just wouldn't care as much over the long term. But in the short and moderate term, I think that actually lifts viewership and creates more money for that super league or the breakaway league. And I know a lot of people have pushed back against that, say like, hey, I'm not going to watch games and stuff.
Right. I've seen that
either, but Twitter. I will, just like you will if you love college football.
Yeah.
Like we love the game so much that we want to see the biggest games and everything. That's my concern, is there's actually a real business case to do it. That's where I'm getting with that. There's a business case to do it. And like for the short and medium term, it makes sense to create the most pristine matchups you can. And that's exactly why they're doing it. So this is legit smoke and everything. This is legit going to happen probably over the next 10 years. Unless like a Big 12, which is probably going to be the only remaining power team once the ACC gets rated. Right. Like, what does the Big 12 do to even like be on that same footing? That's what I'm thinking about. I thought about it all day long after reading these articles. Yeah. Like, what does the Big 12 do to be on the same footing, to include more teams in this Power 2 to make it a Power 3? And so my team doesn't get left out, frankly. I don't know. I don't know the answer there. Like, but
I know the answer to that.
The
answer to that is win. Go out there and win. Win a playoff game. Win a championship. Yeah, exactly. Win a run of championships. You want Utah in the Power? Go win 2-3 national championships. You want BYU included? Go win 2-3 national championships. That's the only way you're going to get noticed. I mean, if the Big 12 can put together some winners in college football playoffs, they've got a shot.
I think that's a very reasonable premise.
It's right. He's right.
I totally agree with that. Let's get to a couple more super chats here. Here's another one from Ryan Willie, $2 saying, Wild Ute, not everything is data driven.
It's so true. Yeah, thank you for the super chat, Ryan. You know, I do realize that. It's a good comment though, and everything. And there is real strategic decisions that are not based on just data that are made.
Right.
And, so you're 100% right about that. Agreed.
Very, very good. Another one here from Carrie Go Knowles. Another one for $5. Thanks again, Carrie. Don't get it twisted because FSU is Big Ten bound.
I think that you're right, Carrie. I think FSU is going to end up at the Big Ten, so you're going to be fine. Sorry.
That's an oh hell yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, hell yeah.
All right. There was another quote in here, wasn't there? Down near the end, I thought there was one other thing, Mo, and we talked about.
That was it. That was
it. That was all of them.
That was it.
Okay.
That was it
Right.
regarding the walking away and leave. I mean,
Well,
it's a great
let's
article. I'm gonna drop the link in chat here.
Oh, please, yes. Yep.
And I would recommend everybody go read it. It is a rather long article. That was just what we were taking away from it, but by all means, Ross Dellinger did a fantastic job on that.
Let me share this one. Okay, this is one of many. I just grabbed this one because, frankly, it's the first one that I booted up right when I started the show. But this is an article from Dennis Dodd, and he's talking about Derek Dooley, who's an ex-Tennessee Volunteer head coach. He says is trying to organize a group of 5 playoff, which we've talked about here on this show many times. Part of it is G5's dissatisfaction with college football playoff revenue distribution, and I would add to that just loss of access would be another reason to do that. Essentially shunting off that group to have their own tournament. I think most of us in our team over the past several months, we've all thought this was a good idea. Has anybody's opinion changed in that regard?
On the fence about it. There's pros and cons. Certainly, I think that it would maximize exposure for the G5, but I do think that they would fall the free fall behind the power conferences is going to happen a lot sooner than it would otherwise. If this were to be implemented in the near term here, I think that the fall off happens immediately when this type of tournament is implemented, rather than maybe 5 or 7 years down the line. It's kind of I think it's inevitable either way, but I think that it's just a more rapid movement. And like Derek, and he's basically saying that, Dooley's saying that, like, this is happening, we have to accept it, and this is the recommendation to maximize exposure and the finances for our schools, and it's a good point. It's not a terrible idea, but they're at risk of being kind of forgotten in the national eye if you don't, if you're not in the big tournament.
It's a fantastic idea. It's a fantastic idea. You get to keep all your CFB revenue that you get doled out from schools, which they're upset by the percentage points, but they're doing much better on the financial side than they did under the previous deal. And now you get to go out and set up your own playoff system and keep all that money for yourself. I think that's a fantastic idea for them. Exposure, money-wise, action in Vegas. You can run your playoff at a different time than everybody else is running theirs. You can run that G5 playoff the first and second week of December.
Yeah.
The FCS has been doing this for decades.
Right.
And they love it because, 1, they get a true champion. 2, everybody's available to participate. There's no exclusionary tasks out there basically saying if you don't fit this paradigm, you can't get in. As long as you're in the FCS, everybody is in the tournament. And you just have to go out and win games like North Dakota State, like Montana. Or is it Montana State? One of them's a Titan, right? And they love it. You talk to people that have gone to those schools. I don't know if Sergeant Pickles is watching or not, but he loves Montana sports. And I know this is something that he's been passionate about because everybody's involved. Nobody's left out. And I think is it a 16-team playoff?
In the FCS?
Yeah. How
I
many?
think it's a 24 team.
Is it 24? Okay. So there must be some buys in there then.
Yeah, it's a
Okay.
different way that they run theirs. So
Okay. Well, if there's anybody that's an expert on the way FCS does stuff and wants to maybe join the show and walk us through what that might look like, just poke it in the comment section and we'll send you the link, because I think it is something that has value. And look, if I was Utah State, and I know I cannot compete outside of doing a money game once a year or something like that, there's no way I can compete even with the mid-level ACC and Big 12 schools. This gives us an opportunity to go out and actually win something.
right, and this doesn't preclude the G5 champion that makes it into the college football playoff.
Right.
That
right.
would still be there, but this is for
Yep.
the other remainder G5 schools to come together and hold a playoff to crown the G5 champion. Obviously, there's going to be a debate after the fact whether that was the true G5 champion, but you can even play a game after that if you wanted to. If the G5 doesn't make it very far in the playoff, those two, the G5 playoff champion could play the CFP G5 champion. So
yeah, so I'm glad you said that, Moen, because it's true. We do need to distinguish the difference. We're not saying the G5 doesn't get a team in to the big tournament. We're not saying that at all. We're just saying for the schools that aren't the one that's going to get invited because it's grandfathered in right now, everybody else wants to keep playing games. They want to win something.
yeah, and get exposure.
Exactly. More money, more butts in seats,
More
ad
gambling.
revenue. I mean, I just don't know why it's taking this long.
It's disappointing, guys. That's why. Like, it's disappointing. Here's the reality. Like, if you implement a program like this, then I think that eventually you lose access into the real playoff. I think that's probably going to happen regardless for the G5.
Yep.
And so you're basically going to eventually get stuck with this as your only true playoff for everybody. And if you're in the G5, it's very disappointing. It sucks. It's disappointing because you're basically left out and relegated, essentially. And it's going to take a whole generation of fans to get used to playing at this new G5 level in a playoff to get excited and reinvigorated, because you don't have a chance at a national championship anymore. And so I think that that's just the reality of this. It's a good idea, but it's disappointing. It's going to take a long time for folks to really jump on board and get excited about it. Maybe, again, a generation of fans for the G5.
I don't know. I think right now you could start that tomorrow and I would watch that. You're already, I mean, I'm not saying take the G5s out of the college football playoff, but let's say Tulane goes this year. You're still going to have a playoff with Boise State.
Right.
That's a needle mover. I mean, Fresno State. There's a bunch of G5 schools that you can put in there that are going to still be needle movers. And you're going to have big regional fan bases. You host the games at the big schools, you're going to have big games just like FCS. So I don't see why you would need a generation to make that
exciting.
Palatable.
Well, I think that you'd realistically have a lot of opt-outs, just like a bowl game. If like you're an NFL prospect, like why in the world do you play at a G5 title? Like,
I think if you're an NFL prospect at a G5 school, you would absolutely play in that. That way you get more exposure to NFL scouts.
I think so.
Why wouldn't you play a bowl game then? Like, it's just the same argument for a bowl game. There's a opportunity to show off in front of NFL.
There's a difference there. That's like Marvin Harrison Jr. sitting out because he knows he's going to be a top 5 pick. These guys in the G5 are going to be in the 6th, 7th, 5th round. You don't see a lot of G5 guys coming off the board in the first 2 days. So I think this would just be exposure for him. Hey, some guy goes on a run in the G5 playoff and has a cannon for an arm. An NFL franchise that might not have had him on their map might have him on their map after that.
So sorry, go ahead, Moen. I'm sorry.
No, that was it.
Okay. Before we move on to the next topic, which is going to be the governance and what has happened to the Pac-12 and now Pac-2, you have a display. You have a little slideshow. Did you want to bring that up now?
Oh, it's probably not the right time, but maybe later on in our show here.
Okay, all right.
We'll be ready for that.
No problem. I just want to you tell me when you want to do it.
Okay.
All right.
But while we're transitioning,
Sure.
we talk about this. Okay. All right. Let's talk about North Carolina State. Okay.
Okay.
So North Carolina State. I think I pinpointed a reason here why North Carolina State's fighting so hard to be the backpack off UNC, guys.
Okay.
I want to make this brief. I know that people are getting sick of this North Carolina State stuff, but actually, I think we know the reason why here. It's because I don't believe that North Carolina State actually has a landing spot in the Big 12.
Really?
I think that Duke does over North Carolina State.
Well, we've heard that. We've seen
And
rumblings.
I know people have reported that. I've just thrown that off saying this is completely crazy stuff. Like, no way. But I was breaking out. And I know Ryan Willie just said, like, hey, not everything's about data and everything, right? Not everything's about data. But the numbers say the Big 12, that Duke is a better fit than North Carolina State. It's not even close because of its basketball, because it's the same market. And really, if you're looking at football viewership and historical football, North Carolina State hasn't done much better than Duke historically. And so you're just really adding that basketball brand in the same market. Like, you just pick your poison there, and Duke's actually a better Big 12 candidate. Would Duke go to the Big 12? I do not know, based on the cultural fit aspect. But that is the reason. I think that's one of the underlying reasons why all the politics in North Carolina is happening right now, because they could get left out in the cold in a dilapidated, watered-down ACC if they don't go with UNC. And I didn't think that before. I thought NC State was just a slam dunk for the Big 12, but I've changed my mind, thinking actually Duke is the ad in the market, at least the first choice behind UNC. UNC would be number one, then Duke, then North Carolina State. So just some food for thought there.
Well, let's do the math. Every school has to have a landing spot for them to have motivation to leave the ACC. We know Clemson. We know Florida State. We have a pretty good idea about Miami, schools like Virginia Tech. There's a lot of schools there that are in the same realm. You're saying right now that you think North Carolina State is even below, I don't know, want to go that low, but Louisville?
No way. Louisville's a slam dunk ad for the Big 12. Louisville has to be the top target for the Big 12 is going to be Miami. If they ever had a shot at Miami, you go after Miami. Of course, Florida State, that's not reality. Florida State and Clemson are not reality. I'm not even going to say those things. Those are no brainers, but Miami, Louisville, and Pitt. Those three. And then, yes, those three.
I thought Pitt had some problems.
Well, Pitt has some problems. Their fans have problems and stuff, but there's so much value add by adding Pitt because of the backyard brawl and a variety of other reasons too. Right. But really, there's three right there. If you can get Miami, but the last one's perplexing. Is that going to be NC State? Is it a Duke, or is it Virginia Tech, a Georgia Tech? That one's perplexing. And it might indeed just be Duke.
That is crazy to me. So what you're saying is the value of the brand, they are a brand. They have national following. That actually would supersede some common sense stuff like Virginia Tech or North Carolina State. On its face, makes it look like it would be an easy move.
Well, it's because we're thinking intuitively about fit. And this goes back to Ryan Willie's comment saying, hey, it's not all about the numbers. Like, if something's just not a fit, it's not a fit. And there is that. That's real too. And data doesn't measure a fit great. But like intuitively, you know what a fit is. And like North Carolina State seems like a better fit than Duke. And maybe that's just enough to push them over the top. Virginia Tech seems like a really good fit, really, really good fit and stuff. But I mean, the data isn't as great, right? So what do you do? Like, you have to balance these things and make decisions based on them. But it's fascinating that Duke is such a strong candidate. I would never have thought that.
Well, we have had insiders tell us this. I have one particular insider that I can't even hint where his origination is, but he told me 3 months ago, Duke is no joke. And we talked about it. We talked about it offline. It's been something that's been bandied around the last couple months. But now to hear you of all people say that, knowing your data-driven analysis is there, that makes a huge difference. That sways me more than maybe some of these blind, unattributable quotes would do.
Do you see the pickle that North Carolina State's in, though, now?
Well, I do
we
now.
We don't know which way it's going to go. I mean, still go. Like, cultural fit-wise, NC State might get into the Big 12. Right. I'm not saying, like, they'd seem like a great fit. Right. And, like, they'd be akin to, like, here, NC State's actually a weaker candidate than any of the Four Corner schools. But based on the data.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, like that's some people might disagree with that and stuff, but that's what I found out recently here. But Duke, because of its basketball, because of its brand, because of the market, same market, really has a lot more to add. It just does do they want to bring? They're a little bit. I think they're a little bit kind of a snooty academic school. I don't know a lot about Duke, but like, would they be willing to come to the Big 12, or would they want to stay in like an ACC with like a Stanford and stuff? I do not know that answer, but you can see here the risk level for NC State of getting left out, completely left out, and staying in an ACC if Duke is the candidate and stuff. So you have to do whatever it takes to fight, claw, get political, whatever you want to do, play that political game just to make sure that you've got a landing spot. I think there's some desperation though, looking at NC State.
I wonder, first, let's get to this comment here from Replica. Since we're on the topic, he says Duke's basketball program makes more money than North Carolina State football, and Duke is a way bigger brand. Their viewership is pretty even in general. So he's talking about actual data. I think the cultural fit is probably the biggest challenge.
Right.
Does Duke want to be associated with Stanford and Cal, or would they rather go and play bigger, or at least have money, more supply side money for football? That would be a decision. Somebody has to make that decision at Duke. I don't know. I know if Immaculate was here, he would say, well, look, there's other avenues. These schools that are in the ACC could move on to something maybe a little more education driven. But I don't know. They moved out of the never column to me a few weeks ago. But to hear you say this now, I think that stands out.
Shocked because I was ripping Duke before I looked at anything, saying that just doesn't make any sense. It's not a fit.
Right.
No, squawking. And lo and behold, looking at it, it's a little perplexing. Do they want to go? Is it a fit? I mean, the numbers say yes, but do the people say yes as well? I do not know.
We could do a poll really quick. We could do a snap poll, Moen.
Yeah, Moen, do a poll. Say if the Big 12 could add the likes of Duke or NC State, who should they add?
Yeah, make it a yes or no question. Yeah.
Now you got to wait for me to log into the. Yeah.
No problem.
Before that, I want to get into this before we get off this topic, because
go ahead and do it right now.
Right now, please jump in.
We are talking about North Carolina State that is tethered to North Carolina.
Right.
North Carolina is the prize. North Carolina State has an option to get into the SEC, guys.
What option do they have? Is that speculation?
That's the Board of Governors has tied them together. The Board of Governors has tied them together. Until anybody can show me them getting freed from that, the Board of Governors has them tied together. So I don't think North Carolina State really needs to worry about the Big 12 right now. Their first and foremost concern is hanging on to that Wolfpack backpack. They're not going to let go of the Tar Heels just to, be taken by the Big 12. The second part is we don't know what these settlement amounts between Florida State and Clemson are going to be, and whoever else leaves to the ACC. A Louisville or Virginia Tech or Pittsburgh may want to stay in the ACC and collect those benefits before they go out to the Big 12, which could be 4, 5, 6, 7 years from now.
You brought that up there. Do you want to say anything about that?
It was the perfect timing, like what Moen was talking about the backpack here. It's just a little illustration of really what Moen was talking about. This is the North Carolina State backpack, the Wolfpack backpack, for those that have not seen it. And it might happen, right? Like UNC and NC State might go in tandem to the SEC. But somebody going to show me a business case and how that makes sense financially, because that makes zero sense to me.
It makes total sense if you bring in North Carolina State at a reduced share and you give North Carolina a full share.
Moen, if you do that, you're eventually going to have to give them a full share unless you do it in perpetuity.
Eventually, but you're increasing your footprint into North Carolina, which is important to the SEC.
I just don't – it's going to be an absolute revenue drain per member for the SEC.
Yeah,
there's zero way that's accretive. Even at half share, and definitely not in the long term.
They're not worth more than $40 million.
It's a Big
It's
12.
not short-term accretive, but it's long-term accretive. When you think about it, expanding your footprint into North Carolina with their population growth, the SEC, the Big Ten also believes that North Carolina is a very important state.
Right.
So yes, there is the possibility that they hang on like a tick and they do not let go of the Tar Heels, and they say the Tar Heels have to tell, SEC or the Big Ten, we've got to bring North Carolina State. The Big Ten's not going to do that. The SEC might. I'm just saying North Carolina State has options before we absolutely bury the Wolfpack. They have.
I'm not burying them. I'm just trying to rationalize really the situation they're in.
I don't see their value. I don't see the
That's
value.
what I'm saying too. The value wise, there's just show me where their value is. NC State.
They have
they're so valuable to the SEC.
They have a gigantic alumni base throughout the state of North Carolina.
But what does that do for a media company? Watch like an eyeballs because they don't watch NC State games. Like if you
I'm sure they will when it's NC State versus Georgia, when it's NC State versus Alabama. I mean,
so Mullen, can I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead.
So and we have talked about this as an option again in the past. There's been talk about Virginia Tech and Virginia and North Carolina and North Carolina State. These have been ongoing conversations since Florida State basically sued the ACC. My only question is, every other state that, except for Mississippi, that has two schools in it, basically they can both be banner headlines. I do not see North Carolina State being enough to carry, including with North Carolina.
It's more than what Vanderbilt carries for Tennessee.
Yeah, but Vanderbilt's done, right? Like Purdue's done. Those are already. We don't even talk about those anymore because they're already there.
Sure, but
sometimes new teams.
Sometimes you got to take a 3 to get to the 10. So you say, North Carolina State's a 3. I want the 10. Well, you can't have the 10 without taking the 3. You take the 3.
Well, combined, that's only 13.
Yeah, the value
of a possible 20. That's the problem. It's not making a 15 or 16 out of 20.
It's 13 right now. But that 3 can become a 5, a 6, a 7 with more population growth in North Carolina.
But anything can do that. Like, okay, I get the political dynamic. If the SEC was smart, you take North Carolina and Duke because you get the rivalry game too. It's basically its own third entity. That's definitely
Duke is not tied. Duke is not tied through the Board of Governors.
I understand that, but if you're trying to maximize value, that's what you do, and not add North Carolina State. It's just it seems like a really bad strategic decision by the SEC, who does not make bad decisions.
How bad do you want North Carolina?
Not that bad to add another.
I disagree. I think the SEC would say absolutely, we'll take them at a reduced rate if it means we get North Carolina.
So let's just talk about it in dollars and cents. If every school in a conference is worth a value, whether it's Vanderbilt or Purdue, but they're tied to a media contract, each one of these schools has a value. In what way, shape, or form does the SEC basically you buy one thing but go back, buy two things but go back one? In other words, how do they continue to grow that one thing? Sure, start them at 30 million or 40 million. But how does that school by itself gain 15 million in the next 3 years? How do they gain 20 million in the next 5-6 years? Unless something changes in North Carolina and they go from 5 million people to 20 million, that's a good head count change. I don't see, if we're saying the value of North Carolina is at 70 million, I think that is North Carolina State, right?
Okay, we'll call 70 and 35.
Fine, perfect. So now you have two schools that to the SEC are supposed to be worth 140 million. So they're subsidizing the second school just to add one school that isn't that much more of an addition.
Yes.
In fact, North Carolina, you could even argue, isn't even worth 70 million right now.
Okay. What about UCLA?
Again, that was something completely different. USC,
if you look at UCLA compared to North Carolina and NC State, UCLA is such a better prospect than seriously NC State. It blows them out of the water.
But it's LA.
They're different qualities. They're different quality of assets here. We're talking about media rights assets.
Yeah,
and UCLA's assets are a lot more valuable.
It's still the same scenario. They brought
It's LA.
UCLA to get USC.
But it's LA.
I can see the SEC. Okay, and North Carolina is North Carolina.
It's not LA. LA by
It's-
itself has more people than North Carolina, the entire state.
Yes, but North Carolina's demographics are blowing up, guys. You need to see the demos of how they're blowing up with technology, young people moving there.
So
North Carolina in a few years is going to be the new Virginia.
okay, but Virginia isn't. Again, let's talk about Virginia. Do we think Virginia Tech is worth half as much as Virginia? And do we think Virginia is worth as much as North Carolina?
I think the University of Virginia is not as worth as much as the University of North
Okay,
Carolina.
so
I agree with that.
every one of these areas has value. LA is the number one or number two, right? New York's the number one.
New York's
or number
one.
two. Okay, so
LA's
LA
two, Chicago's
is
three.
a massive media market that they only really needed USC, but they
Right.
needed a travel partner, right? And for whatever reason, they didn't want Washington or Oregon to start off with that travel partner. They picked LA. They doubled down. But we
They
don't
didn't
know
wanna-
what's the
They did not
upside
want to
of
give the
UCLA.
Pac-12.
What's the
Speaking of the, yeah, go
What's
ahead.
the upside for UCLA compared to North Carolina State?
Right, that's exactly what we're talking about. Like, look at those brands there, UCLA.
But
versus
it's the
North Carolina
same
State.
scenario. They took UCLA to get USC. UCLA came in at a full share. This would be the SEC taking North Carolina State at a partial share to get North Carolina.
Yeah. Okay.
And we're going to disagree on this, but I'm
It's
just telling
okay.
you before we shit
Yeah.
on North Carolina State. North Carolina State and the Board of Governors do have an option to get
Look,
them into the SEC.
I get that. I get that. Like, we're just having like a fun dialogue here. It's interesting to probe into these things. And I think it's fascinating that they're not a no-brainer for the Big 12. I thought they were, and they are not at all. Adding a little bit more desperation to that situation.
Very
If
good.
the Big 12 had the option to get North Carolina State or Louisville, they would take North Carolina State.
I don't think so.
I think
I don't
so.
know anymore. A lot of things that we supposed and we made guesses on months ago, over time, Wildview University has proven their requisite value might be a lot less than we originally went by just by the brand.
Sure, but it's not all data driven.
Yeah,
Keep
not
in
all of
mind,
it, but 85% is.
You need East Coast time schedules. That North Carolina State puts you into the East Coast time schedule.
I think Louisville is an easy selection over North Carolina State for the Big 12 because it even has a rivalry game there with Cincinnati and it lifts that value too. Has a synergistic aspect, so strategically it makes sense too to do that. Gets you into a new market. It adds really good basketball, better football, and like you're not North Carolina, but there's so much synergy that goes with that. I think that really does make sense.
We know this, guys. It's going to keep rolling and rolling.
We're going to disagree with you. What a great
It's
conversation.
gonna keep going. All right, let me get to the next article I wanted to talk about, and let me add this to stage. Hopefully everybody can see this. This is a Ross Dellinger tweet. Let me take the link so everybody can see it. Copy it into the comment section. I encourage everybody to go and read this tweet and also the article associated with it. We're talking about the final little bit of governance for the way that college football currently is being run. They did a little clean out today that I think most people have interest in. So it says governance, access, and voting rights. You know, we talked about for months and months and months who had voting rights and who didn't. We knew Kirk Schultz, president at Washington State, had a vote, right? He was one of 11 plus Notre Dame conferences that all had a vote for the way that college football and playoff worked and everything else. Today, they closed that loophole. Governance, access, and voting rights. The board determined that conferences with fewer than 7 members, including reclassifying schools during the grace period, will not retain representation in the Division I Board of Directors. The board also removed the Pac-12 from an autonomy football bowl subdivision conference to a non-autonomy FBS conference, which impacts the weight of its vote and at the council level and participation in the autonomy legislative process. So bottom line here, guys, they just totally cut off the Pac-12 at its knees and said, okay, thanks for playing, but the organization now is different and you don't have the power you used to have. How do you guys feel about that? I feel like, I don't want to say justified, but this has been my opinion all along. This was going to happen. I know that Washington State and Oregon State had a lot of people that were advocating they would keep their vote. I never, ever saw a situation where that could happen. So what do you guys think about that?
Well, they could get their vote back, but they've got to come up with some kind of conference idea. You can't remain as two independents and expect to get a vote. Unless you're Notre Dame. Of course, if you're Notre Dame, then the world opens for you and you get your own vote on the board. But for two independent schools, it's like UConn doesn't have a vote in the board either. So
let's be very clear about the reclassification, though. When they go and get 6 more teams from the Mountain West, that doesn't put them up to 8 because those schools aren't in power conferences right now.
Right, but I think they still have that 2-year grace period. They still have that 2-year. That's separate from the autonomous conference thing. They still have the 2-year grace period. Now,
let me read it. It's right here. Let me read it.
Yeah.
So we're sure. The board provided conferences that they have fallen below membership requirements, more guidance about the impact of being below the requirements, and the legislated 2-year grace period while they work to get back up to full membership status. The board determined that conferences that are entering a 2-year grace period will, and let me bring this back up so we can see it. Let me do that again. Sorry. I should have just read the whole thing. That's okay. The board determined that conferences that are entering a 2-year grace period will continue to retain representation and voting rights in the Division I Council, Division II Student Advisory, and the football oversight committees. That's one. Continue to retain representation only on sport committees for sports a conference continues to sponsor. And the last one is be permitted to submit nominations from their conference members for the other Division I standing committees.
Right.
So the 2-year grace period works if all your schools are already power conference schools.
Right, but I mean, they've got that 2-year period. They can get into a power conference.
Unless they started this year, their 2 years would be over.
No, their 2 years isn't over. That's not the way I'm reading it, Bomber. Maybe I'm reading it wrong. I'm reading it. They have this 2-year grace. It does say that the Pac-2 or the Pac-12 is no longer an autonomous conference.
Right.
But it's saying that during that grace period, they still do have some vote. It's just not as an autonomous conference.
I would like, now tomorrow we're going to have Doug Rohan on.
Yeah, ask Doug.
And we know. So I'll ask Doug. I'll keep this bookmarked and we'll go back and we'll look at it because I don't read it that way. I read it like if you bring in 6 power conference schools, your conference is back up to 8 and you're good to go. If you're bringing in Utah State and UNLV, just because you add them to your conference does not promote them to power schools automatically.
No,
then how would they earn their vote back then?
They would get into a power conference.
But they're not. Right now, they're not in a power conference.
Right now, they're not. But I'm just saying during that they've got 2 years.
But this says these changes are effective August 2nd.
Okay. That's 2 years from August 2nd.
No, I think, okay, you and I are looking at it completely.
Yeah, we're reading this 2 different ways because I'm seeing a 2-year grace period in there where they have a vote. They don't have an autonomous vote anymore. They no longer represent. There is no A5. Now there's only an A4.
What do you think about that?
I would be an angry beaver. A very angry beaver right now. Pac-12 falls apart. The ACC turns you down. The Big 12 says no. And I would be just slapping my tail against the water right now, just trying to cause all type of havocs because I'd be pissed off if I'm a Beaver fan, and rightfully so. And I don't think that this isn't surprising for anybody. Losing autonomy status based on a conference of 2 is likely going to add G5 teams to backfill. That's not surprising. But I can't wait for the day that Oregon State gets in the ACC. So when they got turned down by the ACC before, when they got rejected before, they can slap them around and say, look, big mistake, guys. We're jumping in your conference. We're going to kick all your freaking butts right now in football. I'm rooting for Oregon State to get in the ACC and dominate because they deserve it. They've been slapped around a bunch. So, again, I would be an angry beaver. This all makes sense. But really, their eyes need to be on the ACC still.
I'm just looking at the notes on this particular tweet, and even in replies to this tweet, that specific answer that me and Mamone are disagreeing on, nobody official has actually commented on.
Okay.
So
well,
we're going to need to do some research and find out. There's a lot of people that have talked about the change itself, but the way that schools get promoted, the way I look at it, any of the Mountain West schools coming in to now what is the P12 that's not a power conference, they don't earn their way to being a power conference school.
right.
I
No.
can't see how that happens.
Unless they join a power conference.
Okay, but right
Unless
now they just said the
they-
Pac-12 isn't a power conference.
No, it isn't. That's what I'm saying. If they join the ACC,
Right,
they join the
ACC, there's no doubt.
Yeah.
Right,
and that's my plan. Anyways, they're holding out for 2 years,
totally.
trying to get into the ACC, which is the best fit for them when these ACC people leave. Second point, I think there used to be a cartoon called Two Angry Beavers, or The Angry Beavers.
Georgia Tech, man.
Georgia Tech. Let me know if I just
Gosh,
dreamt
no.
that up or if I do remember that.
Really quick, let's do it.
Oh,
Let's
man.
get a question in here that came in when we ended off the North Carolina State conversation from Ryan Willie for $5. Thank you so much, Ryan. I don't want you to think I forgot about you. Moen, I'd pick Louisville over North Carolina State, Duke over Virginia Tech.
Different strokes for different folks. I would take North Carolina State and Virginia Tech in both those scenarios.
I see the value of Duke, actually. In the basketball conference, I see that.
Duke. I just love saying the name Duke so much. Yeah, Duke's exciting. Super exciting now. I agree with Ryan here. Louisville over NC
Beavers
State.
is a real show. I didn't make it up.
What was it?
It's called the Angry Beavers. It was a real show.
Okay.
Seriously, though, Oregon
go ahead.
State, as far as mad as I am as a Big 12 fan, I'm just kind of getting tossed around and thrown in the mud. If I'm an Oregon State fan, I'm furious. This totally is whack job, right? I can't wait. Those guys are crazy up there in Corvallis, too. They'll get the chainsaws rolling and stuff during the games, revving up, vroom, vroom, vroom. If they get in the ACC, they're going to totally pound everybody. I can't wait to see it. They're going to pound everybody.
Kerry Goes Knowles, again, a member for $2 gives us a super chat. Nothing worse than an angry beaver.
Hold on a second.
Okay.
Here, let me give you a sound effect first. There's a dam.
Okay.
But I want to put this up here on the screen so people can see that I wasn't crazy.
Show us
the two angry beavers.
There we go. Angry beaver.
Which one's Oregon State? It's got to the guy to the left, I think.
It's got to be the guy with the red nose.
Gotta be the guy on the left. Gotta be.
The guy on the red nose hasn't smoked yet, and the guy on the right nose. So.
Oh boy. Hey, we really appreciate that super chat. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carrie.
Carrie, we really appreciate it. So last thing I will say about this Pac-12 being stripped of their autonomous status, that really but that's the one thing everybody wants. At the end of the day, what do you guys believe? Does Oregon State and Washington State have any way they can dictate how this turns out? We talked in the past, they possibly bribe the Big 12, give them cash to let them in and stuff like that. Do you guys see any way that they could be more leveraged to get into that?
For the Big 12?
Well, yeah, I would say any conference, but yeah, the Big 12 is the one I was thinking of.
You bring up a really good point. I think Oregon State has an outside dark horse chance to get into the Big 12. I wouldn't bet on it, but it's not impossible. And the way that they get in is just like you said, Bomber, too. If they're sitting on a pile of money from the Pac-12,
Right.
you essentially come into the Big 12 for a long period of time with little to no media rights distributions. You not only offer that to the Big 12, but you also, if you can get it somehow, way, shape, or form, and without bringing along Wazoo, if you can get access to the Pac-12 network and what that provides to bring a conference network over to the Big 12, to bring that asset in-house, there's an outside chance that you could probably maybe get in. Like that's really the leverage they would have on the Big 12. I wouldn't bet on it, but it's not impossible. The ACC there's a much more clear path because the ACC will need more West Coast teams. It makes sense for them to be there because of Stanford and Cal. And if the ACC gets rated, that's a natural fit. They're going to go right after them, probably before any G5 ads, you'd imagine. That would be the first 2 call-ups and stuff. So
Yeah,
those are the options. In the meantime, before those events happen, you backfill with the best Mountain West teams, but you leave that out. Of course, to leave, you get a better opportunity.
Mo, do you any?
I agree with them. I think when the ACC loses 4 to 6 teams, that's your first 2 call-ups for Oregon State, Washington State, and then you can add somebody like a Rice and a Tulane and kind of give you a nice happy face across the country.
We'll see, I think. Here's Ryan, another super chat for $2. Says, Wild Ute, not everything is data driven.
Yeah,
that's the same message.
I think we've done that one twice, but you got another super.
It was a great point, Ryan, and it's still landing. It's a great point. It's true.
All right, and behind that, Lonnie Johansson for $5 says, "What do you think the outcome at the end of the day will be?" If we're talking about the Pac-12, Pac-2, in my opinion, they do have a really good chance of getting into the ACC, and it could happen fairly quickly once Florida State and Clemson leave. So if I was to bet, and I was sitting at a roulette table, I'd put all my money on black and just hope the ACC picks you up. What do you guys think?
I think that's the best bet. I think the best thing for Oregon State and Washington State right now is for Florida State and Clemson to be let out of the ACC as quickly as possible.
100%.
They need the ACC to blow up.
I think that's
Wouldn't
exactly
it be kind
right.
of fitting, guys? Wouldn't it be so like Pac-12, Big 12 fitting if like the ACC fell apart, Florida State, Miami left with Clemson, and it's in disarray. They can't get a media contract. Everybody's scrambling in the ACC. It's destabilized, and all of a sudden there's an oasis named the Pac-2 they can jump into. Wouldn't that be the irony of all ironies, just like what happened with the Pac-12 and the Big 12 and how it happened with the University of Utah and the Four Corners jumping over the Big 12 after they said no to the Big 12 before, right? Wouldn't that be crazy if that happened with Oregon State and Wazoo? One can only hope.
I think it's. Is there a chance? There's a not zero chance that could happen, but I don't know. That
one's very unlikely.
Ironic. There's another one from Marcus Williams, a newer member. Thank you so much, Marcus. Really appreciate it. $2 super chat says, Moen, does Big get both? Sorry, does FSU and Clemson both go to the Big Ten?
Thank you for not reading the last part.
Yeah. That wasn't on purpose.
No, Florida State and Miami get into the Big Ten. I think Clemson goes there. I tend to agree with Greg Flugar. I think Clemson, North Carolina State, and UVA go to the SEC. I think the Big Ten takes Florida State and Miami, and I think they both stop at 20 for the time being.
So that's the new Ouija board, huh? So who did you say? You said Virginia?
I think Virginia.
Okay.
North Carolina State, North Carolina.
Okay.
And Clemson.
Oh, Clemson. You think Clemson to the SEC?
Yeah, I think Clemson goes to the SEC.
Interesting.
I think it's a more SEC fit school anyway.
Oh, you're probably right.
Clemson. Yeah, that's an SEC school through and through.
Sure. Yeah, it definitely. I mean, it's obviously out there. What do you think about that idea?
This has been the prediction all along. I remain this is going to stay this way until things actually shake out. I think that Marcus Williams right here, what he's alluding to is what's going to happen. I think Florida State gets into the Big Ten. I think Miami gets into the Big Ten at a half share. And I think Clemson gets into the Big Ten at a half share as well. I think those three things happen. That's enough pressure to put Notre Dame over to the Big Ten as well at a full share. There's 4 adds, 22 teams in the Big Ten. So the SEC is going to also be playing their game. They're going to land UNC, the Tar Heels. There will not be a Wolfpack backpack. Instead, there will be a Cavalier souvenir that's going to be coming in at a half share. So the SEC gets 2, Virginia at a half share, and UNC, and the Big Ten gets 4 and has a foothold in the South with Clemson, Newmarket, Miami, Florida State. Then Notre Dame eventually has to come along and capitulate.
So the Big Ten ends up at 22 schools.
Yeah, I do think so.
Okay.
And
And
the SEC would be sitting at 18.
sure. So the SEC only takes the 2 schools, and then the schools going together at that point sort of become moot because the schools end up in the bigger conferences. Is that your thought process there?
Yeah, I mean, like what I know about the SEC is they hate doubling up in a state, right? They did it for Texas and Texas A&M, but I think that was an outlier. And so historically, they've had. I mean, so adding Virginia and adding the DC market for the SEC, which they do not have right now, is a value add. Plus, believe it or not, the SEC cares about AAU status too, and academics, and Virginia's elite. Brings basketball, it brings football losses. We all know that you need football losses in there, so the Cavalier football team is just going to get beaten alive. But you bring UNC and Virginia, those 2 instead of NC State and UNC. So you actually get 2 markets, and you get DC instead of just going to Raleigh.
So what does the Big 12 end up with?
The Big 12 ends up with Louisville, number 1. Louisville. Pitt, number 2. First on the board is Louisville. You go after Louisville first. Okay. Once Miami's off the board, number 2, you go after Pitt. And yes, Pitt doesn't have the biggest fan base, but it's all about rivalries. That's what the Big 12 needs. The backyard brawl is basically its own entity. It's so valuable, it's its own entity. So you add Pitt for West Virginia, and all of a sudden you've added 2 rivalries. You have the Cake and Nails for Louisville and Cincinnati, then the backyard brawl, just adding more for your media partners to get even more value. And then it gets really, really hairy. So when the Big 12's at 18 schools, who else do you add? And that's where NC State or Duke, you're talking about one of those 2. You're talking about a Virginia Tech or a Georgia Tech. Like, it gets more challenging. And I don't think there's a slam dunk, no brainer fit out of those. Like, it might be more advantageous just to grab Duke, Pitt, and Louisville instead of 19, rather than going after Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech surprisingly is a weak candidate, like really, really weak, like shocking.
That's crazy.
I don't get it. And in Georgia Tech, I just don't think it's going to fit at all. I don't know. I haven't dug into Georgia Tech too much for the Big 12. We've looked at it for the Big 10. But I think that you go after Louisville and Pitt no matter what. Absolutely, in Miami if they're there. And then everything else, like maybe it's just a strategic ad or whatever, but they're not going to add a lot of lift to the conference like Louisville and Pitt would.
I love it. You guys' analysis is spot on. I think really all of it will tell. Once Florida State and Clemson leave, the chips will start to fall. I think there's definitely a chance that it could lay out exactly like you're saying. I think the North Carolina thing is still, if you're taking those 2 schools basically to fill 1 slot, you're giving money away to another school. And I just don't know that there's a big enough value add to offset what you're giving away. But Moen, you might be exactly right. Absolutely.
We shall see. And when we're done, we shall all Georgia Tech. We're not angry.
We're all going to Georgia Tech.
We're passionate. Right. We're just passionate. Not angry.
We're passionate. And people are going to be taking L's, right? I mean, that's just the fact of the matter. We love this stuff. We dig into it. This is educated conversation stuff, but things might not exactly shake out the way we think. So there are going to be L's had, right?
Absolutely.
But it's definitely fun to speculate. And this speculation is not just speculation. It's more like we dig a lot more into it, right? Like than other sources here.
Very, very fair. So we've got Rock and Rant.
Rock.
What's going on, everyone?
Discord guru. So take as much time as you want here, Rock. Kind of tell everybody what our Discord is and how can they get to it. How do they join all that?
For sure. So we just put a link to join in our chat. So please feel free to click on it. If you haven't used Discord before, but you've used something like Slack, think of it as if gamers recreated Slack and made it way freaking cooler. And it's a good place for the community to talk on sports. So it's free, doesn't cost anything, doesn't matter if you're a member or not. And the more we get people in there, the more the conversation goes on 24/7. So hopefully we can get that to happen. We've been doing some post-show conversations with the team. And ideally, we're going to have some live voice conversations that are on the days that the channel is not on or that you guys are just striking up yourselves. So, potentially on Thursday, maybe we can do an NFL draft chat as it's going on, and we can see who schools actually have a day one pick or not, or things like that, right? Or different forms of that. So we encourage everyone to join. The more it's there, the more there's always somebody to talk about. There's great links if you missed them in the show, especially if they're in the chat and you don't get a chance to go back later. You'll see a lot of the case studies, the links to all of the videos that for some reason you forgot them and you forgot the name of the channel on YouTube or Twitch, but you probably know what those are anyway. But also links to documents like the lawsuits a lot of those are in a specific channel. While university, there's conversations around the things that he's put up there. So definitely would encourage everyone to extend the community there and get into the channel and participate, whether or not any one of the mugs that you see on screen is in there or not. I think we'll probably have to start a meme channel soon for all the artwork that is coming from the mind of Moen and others, and put a little bit branding. It's lying season as the portal wraps up, and it's also about to be trolling season in full season effect as soon as we get past all of these spring practices into what's going on. So, though it's hard to troll Moen when we hear that Ohio State's budget is like $34 million for player acquisition, which dusts everything that Flo said a while ago.
Wait, are you
that's
serious?
true or not.
That is
Hold on a second. Wait, slow
That's
down,
the number
Rob.
I heard was that you guys
34 million?
God bless if that's true. I don't know whether that's true, but as a number I heard mentioned the other day. For those of you who missed it, we had someone from the Miami community come on a show a week or so ago and basically said that the bigger programs, if you want to participate, you're minimum 10 to 15 million. And I heard the other day, don't remember where it is, so it's not attributable to a link. So I am curious if that sounds like a number. It sounds like a number Ohio State could afford. If other schools are doing 10 to 15, Ohio State's going to be one of the top two. So then being doubled would not shock me. But I'm just curious on that. As Portal Mania, which was supposed to be really quiet, seems to be kicking into another gear again in the last day or so.
So before we get to some of these other things, I just want to thank you for all the work you put into that, Rock. You've been a great addition to the team. We love having you around, and we'll get you on more shows. Just volunteer and let us know if you want to come on.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to hijack. There's like 35 comments we got to get to, but I was just using it as like a great place to talk about the portal moves as well, right? Things that aren't necessarily on the shows, we can have a wider thing that we talk about on the Discord.
So really quick, before we get off the portal, what is going on at Colorado?
You got a lot of poop emojis to put into the chat because that probably.
What is going on?
Nuts, right? They're getting. I mean, a lot of people are leaving, but they are getting people to visit. Still.
That's right.
I'm not going to cry for Colorado about Cormani and McLean because been there, done that. Happened in Miami already. But man, it's definitely not boring with those guys. I don't know what everybody else thinks, but it's definitely not boring watching it from afar.
They got a hell of a running back. That Dallas Hayden kid is a hell of a running back.
That's right. He just went in, right?
Yeah. He was the third string for Ohio State, but he's been on the team for I think 3 years now, and he's a fantastic running back. He just never could quite see the field with all the talent they've had,
Right.
And with Henderson and Judkins in that backfield, there was just no room for him. So I don't blame him for leaving.
All right, Ute. Colorado portal.
It is a slow-moving, absolute train wreck, confusing. It's ending way worse than I ever imagined it would at Colorado. I thought that I was kind of optimistic on the Buffs going into the season before this transfer portal. Well, seeing the recruiting class and how bad the recruiting class was going into this year in the high school ranks, Coach Brian doesn't even focus on it. And so if you're going to focus on transfers only, you can't lose players like Dylan Edwards. Then also like Cormani McLean, these elite players, recruits, talents. Like you can't hemorrhage those kind of players if you're building through the portal. So I don't know what's going on there. I really fear for those guys after his kids leave, especially once Shedeur Sanders graduates this following year. Yep. And their biggest issue was the trench play. They got absolutely walloped through the trenches. They've tried to address that a bit, but it's just not nearly enough. They had a lot of offensive linemen transfer out. They're in a world of hurt, guys. Like, it's not good at all. It's not going to end well in Colorado.
Oh, my opinion is I've always said that he's a 2 or 3 year guy max. He is going to leave Colorado, and they're going to be literally less than zero. They're going to be so far behind.
They were at like 2 before. Now they're going to be -1.
-1. That's right. So that's my opinion about it. I never felt he was going to be there longer than 3 years. I still think 2 years might be the time. Moen.
I am going to wait to reserve judgment. I thought they would be terrible last year, and they were only awful. I think they were going to be awful this year, so I think they might make it up to mediocre.
Okay. Very good. Before we let you go, Rock, give us your opinion about some of the news that's come out with the ACC. There was that ruling on Florida State. We're going to talk to Doug Rohan tomorrow night. You're welcome to be on the show with me if you want, Rock. But Doug's going to come on at 9 Eastern tomorrow, and we're going to talk about that. What did that ruling that happened yesterday?
Yeah, it feels like last week, but it was just yesterday.
Okay, and I know time just marches by. So you're a Miami guy. You have big ideas about where you'd like to see the things shake out. What are you feeling now?
Yeah, I mean, I just thought watching that judge is just interesting because it's like a stream of consciousness from the bench, which maybe if you're a lawyer in court all the time, it's normal, but I'm not used to seeing that even if I'm watching the People's Court. So it's kind of wild, but I just thought it was a punt, really, right? I don't know. It's in the moment, it's a loss in the sense of time, not in anything else. If something weird happens next week and they're, the North Carolina court dismissed one of the charges in that case with the ACC and FSU with prejudice, so they couldn't bring it back. That's not what happened yesterday in Leon County. But it was kind of just a little bit of an L in terms of, they should have anticipated that when they filed, so they had it a little bit more buttoned up. And ultimately, I think the case is still going to move forward there, and it's just a time issue, right? There's wins for the ACC in just buying time, just more leverage in any negotiation, and time is one of the things that happen. If you're really anxious to get to your destination, like Florida State understandably is, and things go slower, that's kind of, I think, the biggest L, but I don't know it's a permanent L or anything like that. I mean, we'll see in time whether that plays true. Whatever Miami administration does or doesn't do, I want Florida State to get what they want, because ultimately, whether it's the path that I want it to go or not, I still want to see the ACC cry in any way, shape, or form it possibly can, even if I disagree with how I wish my school might be participating in that conversation. So Florida State, I'm rooting for them to get all the things they want, even if I want to torture them all the rest of the time.
And do you see there's enough value at North Carolina State to warrant the Wolfpack backpack ride into the SEC?
Yeah. I think, to me, it's at 24, it is. At the 20, I don't really get it, right? So I guess it really depends on what is the end goal, and if they have a master plan of the SEC and Big Ten to get to 24 later, then I get it a little bit more, and then maybe you just bite the bullet. If they feel that they have to get NC right now because they're fearful that if they don't do it, somebody else will let them backpack along, then I understand why that could happen. But I don't really know that anybody other than the SEC or maybe the Big 12 would let them backpack. So I don't really get it, but I do see it possibly happening. I'm not going to go against what Greg's take is and Moen's, but I think they should be really thankful that the right alumni went to the right school on the right time and got the right job at the right moment.
I think that's fair. Anything else for Rock, you guys?
Thanks for what you do, Rock.
Yeah, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. So can you post that link one more time?
Yeah, I will drop off and do that and see what if Carrie is trolling me while I've been talking.
It's also in the description. It's also in the video description, guys.
And please share it with your friends who may or may not be subscribers or in the chat all the time. There isn't a place where I think there's a national Discord like that I've come across through other channels. So we can definitely make it whatever the community wants to do. And the more people we get, we have a really good start. But the more we get, then it's just going to be more active on a lot of topics in a broad swath, and not every individual team's website or portal, forum that they have on 24/7 does the way that we would do it in this particular community. So invite others there to subscribe to the channel as well, but also get to get on the Discord for the other parts of the day.
Right on.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much, Rock. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay, bye-bye.
So, Moen, I'm curious about the poll results for Duke and NC State.
Well, I have a confession. Sometimes I get drunk and go on Discord and sing.
No way. No.
Yes.
I haven't seen that.
One person was in there with me when I was singing.
Okay.
But yeah, Duke won the poll 57 to 43.
Duke won the poll 57 to 43. Look, peeps, look how beautiful that is. The Duke Blue Devil logo with a Big 12 baby.
I love it.
These polls are not scientific.
No, they're not.
All right. While we were doing that conversation, thank you so much, Rock, for being here. We've got some more super chats and membership things here. So let's go through those. Carrie, again, who's a member, and it gives us another super chat for $5. Guys, what's the difference between a beaver and a duck? Answer: an angry beaver.
There we go.
Carrie, thank you so much, Carrie. Appreciate it so much.
That's right. Thank you.
We got some member comments for people who've been around a little while. Expedition Greg, member for 3 months. Hey, everyone. Good to see you guys. It's good to see you too, Greg.
Absolutely. Welcome in.
Thank you for being here. And then the last one, I don't think I missed another one. Did I, Moen?
Nope. You've got them all with this one.
Okay. This is from Replica, who's also a member for 3 months. Says the players leaving Colorado weren't going to play. I think you could say that at every school.
Well, some of them were going. Well, some of them were going to play, and they got offered more money to play somewhere.
Oh, there you go. That's fair. Yep, that's fair. Let's see here. All right, guys. There was a couple other things I thought we might go into, but why don't we do a little bit of Q&A?
All right, let's jump into some comments here. I got to see what the folks are saying, the community, what is going on.
So just so you guys know, this is on my laptop monitor, so I can't really read them. So why don't you just bring them up, Moen?
I'll handle it. I'll take it from here.
Okay, great.
We'll have to do a little rapid fire here because we've got a lot of them.
Let's do it.
Sean Ski, I won't pay money to see 2/3 of the Big Ten. What 1/3 of the Big Ten will you pay to see? That's what I want to know.
Sean Ski, you're totally right. We agree.
Yeah, he brings up a great point, though, right? That's the conundrum here.
Terry Kane says the game is suffering, but the P2 have blinders on.
That's
made
also
of $100 bills.
Yep. Completely agree.
Stephen Vitt, an Ohio Bobcat. Top G5 schools playing each other is much more intriguing than bottom-dwelling S2 schools playing each other. Spoken like a true Mactor.
Well, and let's qualify that really quick, because I think if you're just taking any random game, you're always going to get viewers. In the bigger conferences are just they're naturally going to get more people watching those games. I would add as a caveat and an addendum to this is at the end of the year, if you have a chance to watch a 5-6 Minnesota or 10-2 Boise versus 11-1 Tulane in a qualifying round game for the playoffs, what are you going to watch?
Both. Going to watch both.
There you go. You're kind of a
Big Ten
screen
folks
on
watch
screen
Big
on
Ten
screen on
football.
screen.
All right. Let's see.
Friends call me Sean. I think any separation will end up being a Power 3, Big SEC, Big 12, and the rest G whatever number.
Friends call me Sean. You know how we feel about this. Thank you so much. That's exactly right.
Illini Ted, part of your fight falls apart because conferences aren't just about football. If football ever gets separated from the conferences, maybe you can think about trimming the underperforming schools.
Nailed it. Nailed it. Nailed it. Nailed it. Nailed it. That's exactly what's going to happen, Illini Ted. So the Big Ten is going to be the Big Ten in everything but football.
That was legitness.
Yeah. It's a great comment, Ted.
I'd love to see a Florida State UCF rivalry. Will the Big 12 consider adding SMU? I'll leave this to you
don't
two
think
guys.
so.
Yeah, there's no shot that SMU is going to get the Big 12. The Big 12 is already rated and concentrated in the Texas market. SMU doesn't bring anything. You're already in Dallas with TCU.
Right.
No.
They bring shitloads of money.
They do, but that money only helps them. It doesn't bring people to the games when you're playing them.
Okay, what if they offered the Big 12 $350 million?
I'd absolutely take it because in 5 years the contract's going to be over again and you can boot them.
So we're saying that Oregon State's going to bring a network and possibly some money that SMU is going to pay their way into here. I mean, you have to consider these things.
I think you take the money, you play with them for 2 or 3 years, then you discard them.
Daniel Gygax, WVU, West Virginia will win the CFP and make the Big 12 look a lot better.
Daniel, that would be awesome.
Daniel, absolutely.
Getting ready for that game against Penn State in Morgantown.
It's a big one for the Big 12. We got to get that one.
State.
So just a note for everybody that might not know, in Discord, Daniel's a stud. He goes in and talks. He really is interactive. So please think about joining the Discord and being part of the larger conversation, because that's where we're really having some fun.
Right. Mr. Ed Wayner. What has happened in the last 2 years since the Alliance blocked CFP expansion? Top teams migrated to the Power 2 and NIL lawsuits and potential crazy settlement costs. Sankey and Petiti needed more cash.
I think that's absolutely true.
He nailed it. It's super painful. I mean, the Big Ten, they stabbed the Pac-12 in the back so bad. It was brotherly. It was like Brutus.
Free pizza, guys. Buckshot Kid, new fan here. I appreciate that you put links in chat from articles you talk about. I wish more YouTube channels would do that. Thank you. Yeah, we try to do that whenever possible. Thank you for being a member. Let's see here. That makes you a winner.
Hey, Buckshot Kid, thank you so much for your loyalty since you've been around. I can't tell you how much more fun the comment section has been. It's been nice interacting with you. And I'm not sure if you're not in Discord, you should get in there too. But thank you so much for being a member for 3 months.
Yep. Much appreciated. Our friend Ryan Willie, Evil Badger.
Evil Badger.
It's more likely that schools would drop sports.
In the Big Ten, yeah, they'll drop sports. I think that's what you're referring to, Ryan.
I think Illinois State might drop football, for instance. I can see that happening.
Well, yeah, on the NIL topic, and I think that's certainly going to happen and everything. I think that a lot of sports are going to get dropped, guys. That's just the nature of the beast. There's only so much money that goes around, and a portion of what was funding a lot of sports is going to players now. So it's pretty easy to see how that's going to happen. If we're talking about the Big Ten, though, if the Big Ten is going to drop schools, I don't think the Big Ten drops any schools. That's not going to happen. I think this is going to be a breakaway of football, like Illini Ted mentioned. I think he's nails with that. That's a development to watch, Big Ten folks. Blame it on Mo and those Ohio State Buckeyes.
That's right.
Terry Kane, pay all the schools the same money and then play with level out. When the deck is stacked in favor of few, you get what we have now. Well, I mean, all the schools do get paid the same money in the Big Ten.
Well, except for
revenue split.
Next year, Washington and Oregon are going to get a half.
Well, that's true. They get the reduced rate, but everybody in the Big Ten gets paid the same amount now. It's about investing in your football.
Right.
Ohio State's invested in football.
The big ruling that needs to come out, and it was just intimated a second ago, is that House versus the NCAA ruling. That ruling, if the settlement is in billions, you can see, I can see you if it's billions and every school is going to be attributed hundreds of millions to pay their old players or whatever the money goes for. I could easily see half of the schools that are currently competing in the main tier of football would drop football, or they'd go down a tier willingly.
Right. The Big Lubbock, I think Illinois should play all 16 Big 12 teams, and if they have a losing record, then Illinois should get relegated to the Ivy League since they love academics over football. I'm telling you what, I don't know that I would put Bert in the Big 12. Bert can be a very dangerous man.
We'll take him.
You guys don't know who Bert is, but...
Who's Bert? Is that Belima?
Bert is Brett Belima. People call him Bert.
Oh, man, Bert.
That guy.
He didn't treat Wisconsin very good, did he? Wasn't he the Wisconsin coach for a second?
Wisconsin was good when he was there.
They were good. And then he went to Arkansas.
He left, yeah.
And it all blew up.
Yep. That's nice when you're living in the Big Ten West and you can easily dominate.
Right. Right. Exactly.
I just think the Big and SEC, this is from friends call me Sean. I just think the Big and SEC commissioners were just leveraging their power to get more. I think there'll be 3 power conferences if the Big and SEC ever tried to separate completely. I'm afraid you would get the feds involved.
Great comment. That actually could happen. Antitrust issues if there was a complete breakaway. I mean, that really might hold things together for longer. That's the black swan.
Mowing after dark. Hard to win a championship when a very small select group will never pick you to play in the playoffs because you're too small to make it despite your record. I think he is still upset about 2014. I apologize, but yeah. We got a national championship.
There's a few here mowing that I think we ought to try to get from Jamie Thornton. Do you see those in the smart area? There's a couple of good ones there.
Jamie Thornton, Sankey has been talking a lot about basketball and getting rid of the auto bids for small conferences and more at-large schools. He's not doing that to add a bunch of football schools. She follows that up with, guys, have you heard about Immaculate talking about his Ivy Conference with Notre Dame leading the charge? I believe based on what we're seeing from the Virginia president, it could happen. We will see. Let's start with the first one, the basketball.
What?
Let's start with the first one, the basketball.
Okay.
Yeah, the basketball discussion. So
I
really,
think they could do that. Yeah.
So Moen, do you think the SEC is going to go more basketball ads, focus on basketball than football ads this next realignment round?
I don't know about that.
I don't know about that. You're still going to get Clemson in there. You're getting Clemson. I think the SEC is more focused on expanding their footprint. I think that's number one value for the SEC is expanding our footprint. They got Texas and they got Oklahoma. They expanded the footprint. They can get North Carolina and Virginia. I think they would be happy.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, the second part.
Okay. Ivy League, Immaculate. We're going to do a short form video on that, actually, believe it or not. Myself and Immaculate are going to do a short form video on the Ivy ACC.
Yay.
What do you guys think about it?
Personally, I think it's definitely the fallback position. If they can keep the conference together after Florida State and Clemson leave, I think that's exactly what they're going to try to do.
I think that it's what I love about Immaculate's ideas. They're always innovative, and he thinks of things that people typically have never thought of. Like he just creates and these amazing ideas. I think there's real legs to this thing, and how it could happen, in my view, is if the ACC does in fact fracture, and you've got schools, your elite academic schools like Georgia Tech and your Dukes that want to align with the Ivy League, that doesn't make sense if they don't want to jump over to the Big 12 and stuff, and they think more cultural fit for academic reasons, strategic reasons, they want to go and be more aligned with Ivy schools. And then even if you want to, you could perhaps even move your basketball into the Big East.
All right.
There's you got that one. There's a Buckshot Kid 1, 2, mowing.
That's his membership. We already got that. We got that one.
Yeah. I can't see it.
I understand. I got you. It's too small for you.
It is. I can't see it. So
Ryan Willie with a $2 super chat. Burt can rot at the bottom of the Big Ten. From a Wisconsin fan. He does not like Burt either.
All they gotta do is cash checks. That's all their job is. Go out and lose games and cash checks.
Burt's actually been one of the more competent coaches at Illinois. I will give him that, but that's not saying much.
Burt. No. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you, Ryan. Jamie Thornton, how about for my friend Kerry Go Knowles? FSU heading to the Big Ten, baby. At Moen After Dark, going to sing that FSU fight song for the FSU Ohio State games. There's only one fight song I will not sing. You can guess what it is.
Yep.
And if after I've had a few, I've been told I'm a pretty good singer. I do a mean wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, by the way.
Oh, there you go. See, I can see that. I don't know about a fight song.
Ryan Willie, big and SEC going to get larger contracts and more cash from these ACC ads. If Notre Dame joins the big, I smell a breakaway. Not this 80 school Super League, but a big /SEC.
Yeah, that's what we're scared about.
Don't doubt it. That's what we're scared of. As outsiders of the Power 2, that is our biggest fear, right there, Jamie. And that's a real fear, and that's legitimate. So, as a Big 12 supporter and a Big 12 fan, want to boost this conference so we don't get left behind. We're playing the big leagues.
I think we can agree, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we can agree 80 schools is too many.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to be between 48 and 64, something like that.
Well, let me ask you guys a question. What are you trying to do with the breakaway? What's the main purpose of the breakaway? Is it just to maximize money?
Money.
Then you don't even need the number's smaller than you'd think.
Look,
it's a little scary.
This is your answer.
Tell them to bring me my money.
Why? Seriously, if we're going to go down that path to maximize revenues, why don't you have a 20-team conference with the best?
There's not enough games.
Well, you don't need to fill up all the games. There's going to be the other divisions too, like the Big 12 and like the ACC. They're going to be playing on Saturdays as well.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to maximize revenue per member, go to 20 with the biggest brands. That's what private equity would do, guys. It'd be smaller than you think.
I don't 20 is not enough.
Why? 20's fine. If imagine you're like
That's
LSU,
10 games a week.
Florida State. If you're trying to maximize money though for each school involved, that's the way to do it. Less mouths to feed, biggest brands.
The premise, I just don't buy the premise. I think there needs to be more inventory. That's all I'll say. Going off of all the conversations we had with Bob, he really focused on how much inventory there was. And there's just not enough inventory. Even with 40, there's not enough inventory.
You guys know the parable of the dad bull and the baby bull, right?
Please tell us.
Tell us about this moment.
Well, I won't tell that one here for
Oh, okay.
family sakes, but needless
All
to
right.
say, the Big Ten and the SEC are walking down the hill, not running.
Yeah.
Dad Mac, let's see if Sankey can put on his big boy pants and get North Carolina without North Carolina State if he does not want North Carolina State.
That's a good comment, Dad. It's a very, very good comment.
Cleveland Rocks, a member. We were at the Pop-Tart Bowl game between North Carolina State and K-State. It was amazing, both with great fan bases. North Carolina State greater than Duke.
Over Dookie.
So let's talk about that really quick. I think that was something that we sort of skimmed over. Let's just reset the premise. The premise when we were talking about this last August, which is what are the 4 schools most likely to join the Big 12 for football? That was the premise. And Duke, and also the culture fit, right? Duke with its academics and then everything else that they do on the academic side. Those were the 2 defining factors. And so Duke wasn't in our first breath. They weren't even in our 4th breath because we just thought immediately they would, refuse it out of hand. I've seen stuff that private equity is telling the Big 12, I don't care what your numbers say. If you bring Duke, it's a massive gain. So
I don't know, but if
has to be set.
If North Carolina State brings that giant Pop-Tart, I would take it under consideration. Ryan Willie, Colorado is a shit show. Nice way of putting it. Friendly way of putting it. We'll get to a few more here, guys, and then we'll wrap it up. Let's see. UCF Island. Pay attention to that House versus NCAA case, and if the Power 4 gets sued for $1 billion for revenue sharing, real structure might have to happen.
UCF Island is a stud, and he knows his stuff. I'll just say that. He's very, very dialed into the way these things work. And so if you don't follow him already, I would recommend people follow him.
Follow him on Twitter?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Clarify. Jan Hulk, all the way from Slovenia. Sorry, I don't agree at all. They will split power team from ACC, Big Ten and SEC. I think he's talking about North Carolina State.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
We'll have to see.
Hey, at DP, yeah, all we have to do is look at what's going on in Nebraska. The big requires research even more than AAU. FSU has put cash into research and trying for AAU. Clemson has done neither. Clemson University equals SEC.
I don't think there's there's no chance that Clemson goes to the Big Ten unless they are the only option out there.
Not so fast, my friend. Not so fast. I think Clemson's a really good ad for the Big Ten because it brings travel partners with FSU. It brings in a new market in the South. So, and it brings Atlanta because you're basically an hour and a half, 2 hour drive out of Atlanta. So you're basically getting that Atlanta market, the outskirts of it at least. So I think Clemson does make sense for the Big Ten. And then if you want us to talk about low research spending, just look at Notre Dame.
Yeah, I don't think that's a call.
Which you can find in the new members-only video, Notre Dame fit to the Big Ten from Wild Ute University in our members-only section.
Yeah, if you want to talk about paltry research numbers, go check out Wild Ute University and see how Notre Dame measures up. The slam dunk Notre Dame candidate, and they are. But my point is it's not all about research too. I mean, that's that's an aspect, but it's not a disqualifier.
Kerry Go Knowles with another super chat. About West Virginia winning a natty, are there enough couches to burn?
That's pretty
What are
good.
we going to do if West Virginia wins a national championship, man?
I'm driving to Morgantown and partying because let me tell you something right now.
Really cool.
I'm flying out there, Mona. We're going to go
West
together to
Virginia,
Morgantown.
I'm telling you what, West Virginia knows how to tailgate. They got a 30 rack of natty and a bag of Meigs County gold. They're ready to go.
So before we move on, I'm going to bring up our page so that everybody knows about these one-off videos that we're talking about. and how you get to them. It can be a little confusing. So let's just run through that really quick. Bring that up. So this is our main channel. I've been moving around between these different links here. The home link shows you what the show is, what our upcoming shows, and then it shows what some of our members' videos are. If you can just go to the videos section, that's all the videos that are available that you can get. And I believe these are all the shorts, right, Moen?
Yeah, there's some short form videos in there. There's some public Wild Ute University ones we've done.
Right.
Excerpts from live shows. You can get all this through the homepage, guys. If you just click on the homepage.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to get to. Exactly
you
right.
Need to go one left. One left.
I know, that's
there,
the homepage.
there you go. There you go.
The join button is on every page, though. Anyway.
Yep.
I just wanted to show that so everybody knows it's not that hard to get to it. And if you need help, send us a DM on Twitter and we can walk you through it.
And by the way, Carrie, when they do win that natty, you're flying up there to Morgantown with me. So
it's going to be a
road
trip party.
Excited for them. I have no problem with West Virginia winning a natty.
I'm telling you guys got to fly out to Morgantown. I might come party with you if you guys go to Morgantown. Well, I'll party with you, Wild Ute. I don't think Nate wants to party.
What do you mean? I'm a good
to you, Moen.
I'm a good wingman.
There you go.
No, Bomber's
driving. So did we get to this comment, this Ryan Willie one?
Which one are you talking about?
Just the one right above it. Did we do this one? Oh,
I was just getting ready to do.
Okay.
Bert, we already did this one. Bert can ride at the bottom of the Big Ten.
That's what
Bert Bielema.
We're emphasizing that point. Bielema can just rot.
I don't want to get anybody.
How dare he leave Wisconsin?
King Spleen, which is a great name, at Wild Ute. So you think the Board of Governors of North Carolina do if UNC has a big or SEC invite and North Carolina State doesn't? They will deny the invite. UNC by law cannot make that decision on their own.
Well, wait a second. They just changed the way the voting works. So
yes,
now,
they changed it to favor where North Carolina is controlled by the Board of Governors. So they can make a move
if they're put in a position, if they can justify the move making more money or whatever, they can do that.
But the Board of Governors is controlled by North Carolina State alumni.
I've heard that over and over.
So you're going to have a hard time for them to make that decision.
King Spleen, this is a fantastic comment, like seriously fantastic. I think that with pressure, decisions are made. And I don't think North Carolina, UNC, is going to be the first to move in realignment. I think that they're going to find themselves in a fractured ACC. And the local government entity is going to make the decision once things have hit the fan for both UNC and NC State. They're going to try to put UNC in the best situation as possible because both of them are going to be suffering in a dilapidated ACC otherwise. So I think that is going to be made under fire, that decision. It's not going to be the first mover. It's going to be a fire decision. And then, look, NC State might end up in the Big 12 still. And if NC State ends up in the Big 12, that's a big selling point, too, to the politicians locally.
Two more comments I want to put up here, and we're going to wrap up, guys. North Carolina, this is from DP, our Clemson friend. North Carolina State is top 15 in football. Men and women just made the Final Four in basketball. That's better than most of the SEC and big schools, even better than North Carolina and Duke.
Yeah, it's true. So when we're talking value, whatever it is in the eye of the beholder, right? What's more valuable to you doesn't necessarily mean it's more valuable to me.
Well, and like we get captured in the moment. We have recency bias and stuff, and NC State made that tournament run and everything. But if you look at historically, I mean, it just hasn't always been that way. And we're talking about redundancy, guys. We're talking about two schools in the same dang market. That's the problem for NC State. They're in the same market as UNC. So you get really limited value out. You're not adding a new state, which is important to the SEC. You're not adding a new city or cities because you're in the Tobacco Road area, Raleigh and everything. So you're basically just adding two schools for one. And that's what's hard about that decision.
Exactly.
Thank you for that comment, DP. The more you know.
All right.
Final comment from Doc Gibbs. Is it true that Utah thought it was too good for the Big 12 before the Pac-12 actually collapsed? I think that's directed to you.
That never happened. That never happened.
Yes. The answer is yes.
I love the Big 12 and
Absolutely
my
yes.
Big 12 brethren here. So the Pac-12 is a million miles away here.
We
All
don't
right,
need to talk about the past.
Yeah, we don't need to
We're not
talk
going to talk about
the
the past,
guys.
No.
Please forgive us, Notre Dame. Any last words, Bomber?
Yeah, I need a new computer, guys. I'm replacing parts, and whatever's wrong, I can't fix it. My next fallback is to get a new motherboard and a CPU. So that's money I don't necessarily have. So you can send me money and I'll take it to my Venmo. It's been scrolling down at the bottom. Just anybody want to give me money, donate so I can go get some new parts on my computer. I will take it.
Okay, how about you?
New realignment crush right there. Oh, baby,
Ooh,
that's
I like
so
it.
sexy. That Dookie.
I like it.
That
Yep,
Dookie.
I like it.
Okay.
Give me that
Dookie. Give him that Dookie. I think that's more information than we needed, Wild You. As for me, you can give me money for ammunition. What I need, because ammunition is freaking expensive nowadays.
Yes, it is.
Other than that, we will see you guys tomorrow at 8 o'clock, Bomber?
8 Eastern, and Doug Rohan will be joining us at 9 Eastern.
Okay.
So we're going to have a short, an hour where we're going to talk about the current events and maybe get caught up on some ACC stuff, especially. But it's Doug Rohan showing up, and I'll make sure to ask him that other question about the Pac-12, Pac-2, and how that voting works, because I really want to know. He might not actually know, to be honest.
Okay. Well,
We'll
until
try.
then, we will see you guys later. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. Thank you for all the super chats and memberships and generosity.
Absolutely.
We greatly appreciate that. It helps us keep the lights on here. Know we all love you guys. We even love North Carolina State and North Carolina and UVA and Duke. Everybody. We love everybody. We're just passionate. So we will see you tomorrow night.
Peace out.